Was it a connection error, or did you get? Do you have to deal with something?
Yeah, emergency type stuff.
All right, that's 10 o'clock.
Couldn't avoid it.
Do we have enough people? We need one more. 6 of us.
Director Beckett did send his regrets for this morning's meeting.
Okay.
We haven't heard from anyone else, I don't believe.
1, 2, 6. Yeah, we need one more. Oh, there we go. And there we go. Hi, Penny.
Hello there.
Alrighty, so I will open the meeting at 10 o'clock, and we'll recognize that we are conducting our business on primarily the territories of the Seashot and Hoopatchesett First Nations, but also many of the New Channels and Coast Salish Nations as well, since we're telecommuting into the meeting today. I would note as well that our meeting is being live streamed on YouTube and recorded, and you'll be able to access that live stream either through our website or on YouTube. But we will only be receiving public comments through an email address that is responses@acrd.bc.ca. And we'll check at the end of the meeting in order to see if there's anything there. All right, everyone. We have a pretty simple agenda for this committee of the whole meeting. We have minutes, and we have mostly things that have to do with the parks. And with that, I may go on and offline because it's just me and the toddler. My wife is just leaving now. So I will I still be here, but in the event that there's an awkward pause, I would ask that Director McNabb, who as vice chair, take over, because I'm probably running after a toddler. But she's got a movie on. Hopefully things will be okay. Okay. Are there any items to add to the agenda or otherwise change?
Mr. Chair, I'm not aware of any late items for consideration.
Okay. If we could have a motion to adopt the agenda then, please. Thank you, Director McNabb. Seconded by Director Cole. Comments? All those in favor? Motion carried. Okay. And we have minutes from the committee of the whole meeting for May 26th, 2021.
Move receipt.
All right. Thank you, Director Cote. Seconded by Director McNabb. Any comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Motion carried. Okay, that brings us into requests for decision. First of which is the Parks Asset Management Plan version 1 as presented by our acting CFO. So please go ahead, Tricia.
Thank you. I will just start sharing my screen in a moment. Oh, it's not working.
You might need the host to okay you for sharing.
Possibly.
Yeah, or like just okay multiple. Either Wendy or Janice can do that.
Do you have your presentation up on your screen?
Yeah, it's ready to go.
Okay, so go back to the meeting. Just minimize that or go back to your meeting. And
I didn't have an option. Just entire. No. Oh, now it's going to let me share. Okay. Technical difficulties.
you got it.
Got it. Thank you.
Right.
Okay. All right. Okay. So can everyone see that? Okay.
Yeah, we can.
So the Parks Asset Management Plan version 1. In previous asset management plans, assets were grouped by service, but we've determined that the best value would be provided by grouping all parks functions together. Services included in this asset management plan are the Bamfield Community Parks, Beaver Creek Parks, Cherry Creek Community Parks, Regional Parks, South Long Beach Multi-Use Path, and the Sprout Lake Community Parks. And parks that do not have man-made assets are not included in this asset management plan, but they may be included in subsequent versions if natural assets are identified. This asset management plan was influenced by the park's levels of service and maintenance standards, the asset management policy, asset management strategy, and financial plan. Influences from this asset management plan will be given to the upcoming individual parks management plans and long-term financial plan. Future influences will come from changes in demand, including growth, vision, regulations, and risk. The total current reproduction costs and total future reproduction costs are shown here. Regional parks holds the most value as it encompasses the largest total size of all parks functions at a current reproduction cost of 1.8 million. Banfield Community Parks and Sprout Lake Community Parks hold the next highest total values at a current reproduction cost of approximately 800,000 and 900,000 respectively. Broken down by asset type, trails hold the highest current and future reproduction costs with a current cost of approximately 1.8 million. The largest trail systems in this asset management plan include the Log Train Trail and Alberni Inlet Trail. Recreation equipment, which is mainly comprised of playground equipment, holds the second highest reproduction cost at approximately 700,000. The ACRD was successful in a UBCM grant application for natural asset management, training, and implementation. Training is due to begin next month. Adequately managing all engineered and natural assets is the only way to achieve true sustainable service delivery. As noted in the improvement plan, subsequent versions of the asset management plan will highlight associated natural assets, their direct benefits to ACRD services, cost to adequately maintain and to ensure reliable delivery of services, as well as the cost to reproduce should the natural asset be compromised and within our jurisdiction. The ACRD is not immune to the effects of climate change, but sufficient identification and management of these assets is the best mitigation of extreme consequences. Excuse me. And on March 24th of this year, the Board of Directors adopted the park's levels of service and maintenance standards. All parks are currently meeting the standards identified in this document, except for the Log Train Trail, Maplehurst Parks and Trail, as well as the West Park in Banfield. The Log Train Trail varies in condition depending on the area and currently requires 40,000 in estimated bridge replacements based on current estimates and increased maintenance. Maplehurst and West Park both anticipate an increase in use and require more maintenance and infrastructure upgrades. The future individual parks management plans will outline specific costs and apportionment to achieve desired maintenance levels. These figures were determined with consideration given to the varying replacement timelines for different assets, as well as the current total assessed value of the tax base. Additions to services with larger tax bases will result in a smaller financial impact to each household. These figures have been determined using a conservative approach, whereby the capital replacement, operations, and maintenance costs have been averaged over a 10-year span to consider the financial burden of minimizing the funding gap in the absence of grant funds. Banfield Community Parks currently collects $8,144 annually, or a residential tax rate of 0.074 per $1,000 of assessed value. However, 79,000 or a residential tax rate of 0.717 annually is recommended. Beaver Creek Parks currently collect a residential tax rate of 0.048 with a recommended increase to 0.050. Cherry Creek Parks currently collect 0.009 with a recommended increase to 0.017. Regional parks currently collect 0.010 with a recommended increase to 0.021. South Long Beach Multipurpose Path collects $71.43 per parcel with a recommended increase to $138.29 per parcel. Sprout Lake Community Parks currently collects residential tax rate of 0.101 with a recommended increase to 0.108. Every asset management plan that's been created to date has included a long-term capital replacement timeline. Because this asset management plan includes several services and tax bases, only 10 years have been included for readability. Based on current replacement costs, replacement timelines due to condition and age are shown here. The 2021 figures represent the funding gaps that have grown in each service over the years. Capital replacements will happen as required, and estimated replacement timelines are only to be used as a forecast. The projects currently budgeted in the 2021 to 2025 financial plan for all parks included in this asset management plan are shown here. The West Coast multi-use path was recently unsuccessful in an application for grant funding, and staff are continuing to search for funding opportunities. Budgeted capital projects in 2021 are substantially higher than future years, as capital replacements are currently budgeted and planned mostly in a reactive versus proactive manner. The total budgeted projects in the current financial plan total 1.89 million, or 520,000, excluding the West Coast multi-use path. Increases in operation and maintenance costs may indicate either impending asset failures, or they could be due to the newly adopted maintenance standards. The increases in Sprout Lake are due to the Faber Road Trail and Lakeshore Road Trails. But besides these increases, there's no other notable trends developing in current operations and maintenance costs for parks. High-risk replacements associated with suggested projects may mitigate impending service interruptions or liabilities. Total high-risk replacement total $359,500. Of these projects, only the Evergreen Crossing Log Train Trail Bridge at 3.9 kilometers and the Cougar Smith Park paving project are included in the current financial plan, representing 42% of the total high-risk projects. Replacements associated with medium to low risk total $45,000 and $26,050 respectively. Of these, the Log Train Trail Bridge at 6.5 kilometers is the only medium to low risk project included in the current financial plan. This list is not exhaustive. However, we've included what we've assumed are the projects with the highest desire or interest. Estimated project costs are based on the best available data or estimates, and the resulting required increase in residential tax rate takes into account the future replacement of the asset, the expected service life of the desired asset, as well as the total assessed value of the tax base. Required increases in residential tax rates are based on the current converted assessed value of land and improvements of each associated electoral area. Each asset management plan is concluded with an improvement plan. Variations in this improvement plan from typical goals include execute repairs noted in on-site engineering's report on the Log Train Trail, confirm South Long Beach multipurpose path asset inventory with District of Ucluelet, confirm capital funding availability for Banfield Parks with Banfield Parks Committee, as well as begin regular documented condition inspections, determine the condition and financial requirements for China Creek assets for forecasting purposes, create individual parks management plans with maintenance costs and apportionment, and coordinate with future asset management plans, and gather natural asset data for future asset management plans. Thank you. And I'll stop sharing.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, thank you for that. Let me scroll back. I'm wondering if anybody has any comments or questions. Dr. Roberts, please go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair, Tricia. So nothing has begun or started with regards to the West Coast multi-use path. Is that correct?
I don't believe so, no. Maybe somebody that has more knowledge with the current project can chime in. There we go.
For the chair, we have got our detailed design complete, and we're in the process of acquiring the tenure, but we're doing that in step while we're trying to achieve full funding for the project.
So basically, other than being prepared for it, there's no forecast date because we don't have the money or funding for that trail. Is that correct?
That's correct. We have a grant application with the active transportation grants for the Ministry of Transportation. If that were successful and we are able to fully fund the project, I believe that we'd be able to begin construction, within a 6-month period, assuming we're able to tenure a contract for construction purposes. But at the moment, we're not at that point yet.
Have we received anything from Bike BC?
Well, yeah, they've changed that grant into the active transportation grant. So we've applied for that, but we won't hear back until the fall, they say.
Okay, thanks for that.
Thank you. Director Cote, go ahead.
Thank you. Just it must be an oversight. In the listed ACRD parks and trail names, you're missing Faber Park.
Oh, that might be an oversight.
It is listed further along, but
What section was that in?
page 22 of the report.
Okay, I will update that.
Thanks.
It is included in the figures, but that would be an oversight. My apologies.
Also, is there any identification in this report about grants at all?
I haven't identified any grants, but that's not to say that there aren't any out there. I haven't actively been looking, but like Michael's been looking for grants for the West Coast Multi-Use Path. We're always searching for grants, but I haven't included any potential grant funds in this plan.
Go ahead, Terry.
Can I just add to that? So with these plans, we assume basically no grant funding. And then when we bring forward like a 10-year financial plan, which will be like that next step, that would be where we would identify like those infrastructure gaps and say at that point, like, okay, let's do this based on the assumption we're going to get grants for 30% of this. And we would build some assumptions in that process. But we like to make sure that the asset management plan really is just giving us a fulsome cost of what maintaining our existing assets are. And we kind of almost ignore the funding end of it in the asset management plans. That's more of a financial plan activity.
Mm-hmm. So in communication of what we do in the future, we'll just need to make sure to make that distinction in that if people are pointing at the asset management plan, they realize that it's just the costs and that how we meet those is something that we need to track separately, which we can do, probably embedded within a strategic plan or within the any financial plans that we would be putting together. But I think that's important to note. So Dr. Cote.
Thank you. So page 25 and 26, it lists Sprout Lake Community Parks assets, I guess. But is there anywhere that we can find how you break this up into?
Like over time?
Well, no, divide it up between the different parks and trails, because it kind of lumps everything together, and I'm just wondering, building, like, is there more than one building on different parks, or bridges?
I can send you a breakdown if you like. I just lumped them together based on category for readability, but I can absolutely send you a listing of how I determined those totals.
That would be great. There's things in the report that I don't know what it's describing, such as piping. So
for Sprout Lake Parks, that would be the water mains for Cougar Smith Park.
Okay, great. I'll look forward to seeing that breakdown. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
If we have the time, it might be beneficial to have like appendices with breakdowns for each of the individual components of these as well. And that's something we can add on to it as later. But if it's easy to break out, we might as well do it just as like something that can be referred to later.
Sure. Yeah,
Dr. Bodnar, you had your hand up?
Yes, I was just going to ask about the trails. There is a trail at Cherry Creek that I don't see mentioned that takes in at the end of Strathcona trails through there that go over to the Cherry Creek bridge on Cherry Creek Road? And also, who's taking care of the Lacey Lake trail that goes up to Lacey Lake?
I'm not sure about Lacey Lake. If somebody does know about that, they can chime in. And the trail to the Strathcona Bridge wasn't included, and that may be an oversight. I can look into that one. The trail that we've included so far, that's the one that runs along Cherry Creek Road.
Yeah, but there is a trail that
Okay.
goes off to the left to Strathcona.
Okay, I'll make a note of that.
Thank you.
And as far as Lacey Lake goes, I'm not sure if Terry or Wendy may know more about that, or maybe Jenny.
Go ahead.
Through the chair, I believe that, so one of the things we have to keep in mind is that the regional district is large and there are lots of trails and lots of parks that aren't necessarily ours. And maybe Michael, you can clarify, but to the best of my knowledge, the trails that you might be referring to, I don't believe are considered ACRD assets. So although they exist, they are not part of a service that we then maintain and are responsible for. A great example is, of course, the Hole in the Wall, which comes up frequently as a park that exists, but we don't own it. It's sort of an orphan and it lives out there and no one has claimed responsibility to maintain that park. And I think the two that you're referring to might fall into that category. Michael, maybe you can clarify on that?
Yeah, I'm not aware of a trail to Lacey Lake at this moment. I know the ones in Cherry Creek are that would be applicable would be the Log Train Trail and the Cherry Creek Road Trail. And then the one that branches off from the Cherry Creek Road Trail at the bridge, I think it's operated by the city of Port Alberni as well.
Director Roberts, please go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair. Page 27 refers to the current recommended residential tax rates for each of the service areas. I noticed that South Beach Multipurpose Path, the current requisition is $7,000, and that's $71.43 per parcel, even though the trail hasn't started and we don't have funding for it. Is that going to be taxed now? And is it going to go, anticipated to go up to 138.29, which is a 94% increase? Where are we at with the taxation? Is that happening now?
I can take that one if you like. It's for the existing trail, Director Roberts, the trail that goes from the border of District of Ucluelet out to the junction. So that one right now is an existing trail that is taxed to those residents that are in that South Long Beach area by parcel tax. And District of Ucluelet, we have a contract with them to provide service, and they are looking for increase in the agreement for maintenance of that because their maintenance costs have gone up. So they've been working with staff to establish that. So that is completely separate from the West Coast, what we call the West Coast MUP, the West Coast Multi-Use Path.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Are there any further comments or questions? Oh, Director Shannon, please go ahead.
Thank you. Just kind of in regards to the orphan parks that we kind of have around here, I know it's not necessarily part of an asset management plan, but is there, I mean, even like even if it was included, or I don't know how we could approach this, to like recognize that they're there, they're not our assets, but maybe to be a little proactive in conversations with the other landowners because they are within the regional district. I don't know if that's possible or not, but we know, like example, the hole in the wall is an issue and we know it's not ours. I just don't know what we have for options there while we're talking about parks today. Thanks.
Yeah, we could maybe mention that this plan is only for the assets that are owned by the regional district. We have to be careful not to claim parks that are not ours, because then we're also claiming some liability that we don't want to be ours, right? But we could maybe add a broad statement that talks about that this is not an exhaustive list of trails that are in the valley, but the ones that are under the jurisdiction or of the regional district, but the ones that are under our jurisdiction. Because yeah, there's numerous trails, Stoke Falls, all of those trails that are just there and being maintained completely independently from us. And I think over time, some of those will be brought for discussion as to maybe potentially added, such as the hole in the wall, which is causing lots of traffic flow issues. But we definitely don't want to claim responsibility for something that is not ours.
Okay. I think the only thing left in this particular conversation would be the recommendation to adopt. I'm wondering if we do pass something similar, that we just keep in mind that I wouldn't mind seeing appendices with the breakdowns like Director Cote had asked for. So if that can just be amended or something like that, then that'd be good. Are there any other comments or questions? Director McNabb?
I was just looking at the Beaver Creek page 38 stuff, and it mentions a horse stable, which was page 38. Oh, where was it? Yeah, I lost it. It mentions a horse stable that I've never heard anything about, and I don't know where that's come from. So kind of be interesting, because do we really want to have a horse stable sitting out in a park that's unprotected? So I don't know where that came from. Maybe Tricia or Mike can ask for that.
That would be for Evergreen Park.
Yeah,
The horse stable would just be that
33.
the small structure. I think there's 2 stalls in it right now where people can put their horses, but that's all the horse infrastructure is based around Evergreen.
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Director Cote?
Thank you. There's been discussion in the past about regional parks. So I'm just wondering if there should be something in this report that talks about future investigation, I guess, regarding regional parks. I'm looking at your timeline on page 37, and I thought that was sort of part of our strategic planning, was identifying regional parks.
Yeah.
Opportunities. Thanks.
I think that's a good point, Director Cote. I think, and we didn't really point out any kind of pilot projects for regional parks this last time, but we should embed that as a question that needs to be asked and answered at our next strategic planning session. So if we can identify roughly when that may be, then we can slot that into this and other timelines. And I think that could address that. And it doesn't need to be exact. It could just be like kind of a step there, phased approach of the strategic plan usually comes around this time, after this, but before this, and just put it in there. And we'll just make sure to have that focused discussion during the strategic planning process. Dr. Roberts?
Do we need to add an amendment to this request for decision?
I think we can just say as amended, unless we're changing the actual motion in some way. And I think the only thing we'd need to change is just, if we do put it forward, is as amended. So that's with the appendices and adding in a mention of regional park discussions. Yeah, and if that's okay, you should probably just be able to say I'd make that recommendation, and then we'll see if there's a seconder.
I would make that recommendation.
Okay, well, thank you. Moved by Director Roberts, seconded by Director Cote. Any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried. All right, let's go back. Okay, so the second item here we have, that's why it's not working, is a park and playground inspection and maintenance policy. It's just a briefing note, though. It's not like a presentation. So please go ahead, Mike.
Hello there, through the chair. Thanks for having me this morning. It's great to have everybody have such a discussion about ACRD parks and trails. And I want to say thanks to Tricia too, because the asset management plan is going to make a big impact on how we're able to operate and manage our parks. So it's good to see, and looking forward to implementing the asset management plan here. So we have a few other prioritized items that'll work along with the asset management plan that'll help us better manage our parks and trails. The first one I'll speak on is the park and playground inspection and maintenance policy. Now this kind of just sets minimum levels of inspection and maintenance standards for ACRD owned and operated parks. That includes trails and playgrounds. So we've set this policy to have park inspections that don't follow routine schedules. So the ACRD would perform an inspection in reaction to a public complaint. And also, while staff such as myself are performing our regular duties, if we happen to be within a park, we're also looking for broken infrastructure or areas of issue that could be a cause for liability. And then we're also doing playgrounds, a comprehensive inspection twice a year, and that just follows standard Canadian playground safety standards. So I see this policy as doing two valuable things for the ACRD. The first one is, it reduces our risk and it helps keep parks safe for public use. So by formalizing the role and expectations of ACRD staff for inspections and the maintenance in parks, it allows us to better identify things like broken infrastructure or issues which can pose a risk to public safety. It allows us to better do this in a timely manner and have the proper procedures in place for resolving these issues. The second thing it does is it protects the ACRD from a liability standpoint. So if an incident were to occur in an ACRD park and we were named in a lawsuit, having this adopted policy and following it shows that we're performing our due diligence and we're being proactive in addressing these types of concerns. So that's all I have for this one. If there's any questions.
Are there any comments or questions? Looks like it's pretty straightforward. We do have a motion to adopt this. Thank you, Director Shannon. Seconded by Director Cote. Or do you have a comment? Please go ahead, Director Cote.
I'll second it. I also have a question around the regular inspections. So I know that Sprout Lake Park, Cougar Smith Park is supposed to have regular maintenance checks like weekly on the equipment and the bike skills and et cetera. Will that also be part of what you're achieving with the
So I'd say that goes above and beyond this policy. This is kind of just setting a standard minimum for all of our parks and trails, and parks with a higher level of infrastructure such as Cougar Smith that receive those regular inspections, they exceed this policy. So we can do that for any of our parks and trails. This kind of just puts on paper the minimum that we want to achieve. So there will be no change in that inspection.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Could we just include the how to word this? The regular maintenance required maintenance. The regular. I just want to make sure that it's covered so that because different parks have different standards of inspection and maintenance. So just to say that then it doesn't matter if it's a bare land with nothing or something with the higher the need for regular inspections and maintenance, such as Cougar Smith. So just something to say that our policy includes the how would you put it? The need for whatever that park requires for maintenance and inspection.
So through the chair, I can add a line item in the policy that addresses, you know, how different parks hold different standards due to their the infrastructure within each park.
Thank you. I think that would satisfy our insurance companies as well if we had this in our policy. Thanks.
It sets expectations for citizens who are reading these reports too, right? So it's not, the target is not to make every park exactly the same. And that's, I think, what you're getting at. Okay, that makes sense to me. So it's been moved and seconded already though. Are there any other comments? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, that brings us to the last item, at least the last decision item, which is the Parks Improvement Plan.
Okay, so this is me again through the chair. So this touches on 3 separate priority projects for the development of ACRD parks, different services, and they kind of build off of the previously adopted parks levels of service. So that's the creation of guidelines for sustainable design and construction practices, the production of standardized signage strategy, and the development of individualized management plans based off of this supplied prioritized list. So in conjunction with the ACRD Parks Asset Management Plan and the improved levels of service, these documents will just act as resources for staff, consultants, contractors, and volunteers to more formalize the process while undertaking parks planning and infrastructure replacement and new construction projects. First off, I'll touch on the guidelines for sustainable design and construction practices. So these are held in many different municipalities, and they're all a little bit tweaked to tailor to the exact municipality that they're applying to. But it's definitely, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. We're just trying to adopt best management practices. These guidelines are for staff, consultants, contractors, and volunteers while doing planning and constructing new and replacement infrastructure projects within ACRD parks. They're intended to provide necessary tools and resources to plan, build, and maintain park infrastructure. The establishment of parks and trails design and construction guidelines would ensure that ACRD parks utilize industry best management practices that address liability concerns, which keeps maintenance costs low and ensures quality and safe infrastructure for parks users. They're also intended to contribute to ACRD parks branding in a way that's consistent and coherent and appropriate to the character of each individual park. Now, just to give you an example, I'm going to share my screen, assuming I can. There we go. Everybody sees the regional parks design guidelines up. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've just pulled this from the regional district of Central Okanagan. I found them because, you know, if you go to Vancouver or one of the larger capital regional districts, they have very extensive guidelines. So I tried to find a regional district that was of similar size and had a program more to the intensity that we're looking for. So again, there was a long document, so I've kind of cut the fat out of this one, and we're just looking at a couple of the identified priorities. So it's generally going over the best management practices, the different types of permitting, different types of classes and trails that you'd see in one of our parks, and then the different type of infrastructure that you'd see within the park. So we have gates, fences, handrails, guardrails, benches, playgrounds, bridges, all things you'd see within ACRD parks. And then, you know, how to use this document. So it guides it through the entire process of a construction project, through planning and design, the tendering process, construction, ongoing maintenance. And there's resources throughout that whole process that helps guide decision making. This is an example of like a major multi-use path, like the West Coast multi-use path would be with an asphalt trail, you know, when it's appropriate and what type of construction would be required there. And then something smaller, like a narrower multi-use path built of crush. This is similar to Faber Lakeshore Trail out by Sprout Lake. And then a nature pathway similar to the Alberni Inlet Trail, which is when this would be used. And then also different types of infrastructure that we would build within parks, like gates. Sorry, I'm going to go through this very quickly, but I can provide the full document after if somebody's more interested into doing a deep dive. Different types of fencing and when they'd be applicable within ACRD parks, pedestrian bridges, boardwalks, picnic shelters and gazebos, docks, and different parking lots, you know, types and sizes and placements. And something that's really valuable is, you know, the detailed drawings. So this would help a lot with awarding construction contracts, applying for grants, showing that we have these types of procedures and processes in place. So again, this is an asphalt trail. And then this is more of a nature trail. This is how a design for implementing culverts. And sorry, I am going very fast through this. I just wanted to provide a quick overview about what they may look like once they're complete. Pedestrian bridges, boardwalks, and you know, this is a lot of detail, but this is just essentially the different type of materials that we would use, because, you know, if you award a contract to construct a trail, you could get anything from, you know, a asphalt path to a dirt path, and having specified materials when we construct trails already pre-approved is an important aspect to make sure that we are meeting a minimum standard for new constructions. And then also it would address some trail guidelines. So the industry standard is to essentially use ski course grades. So green circle, blue square, black diamond. I think it's pretty universal. Everybody understands the different ratings for trails. So it's essentially adopted by trails, definitely throughout BC and Western Canada. But essentially it's stating, you know, what goes into setting these types of standards, and that would be applied during our signage. So I'm going to go to some signage design now, which is the next opportunity here. So the next identified need for ACRD parks is to establish ACRD's standardized park signage strategy. Currently, park signage has been designed and installed kind of as needed, sign by sign, and this has resulted in, you know, a wide array of sizes and shapes and colors and different information provided throughout each park. Sometimes within each park, there's different designs and standards for signage. So consistent signage within ACRD parks really provides clear information for park users, such as identifying that they're in an ACRD park, different regulations, directional signage and interpretive signage. So there's currently an opportunity for the ACRD to partner with the city of Port Alberni, who has also identified this as a need for them. And since there are a few trails that kind of go from the city of Port Alberni into the ACRD without clear boundaries, Having a shared standard is valuable for a couple of reasons. Number one, it helps us share the cost for a consultant if they're developing one signage standard. And then it also standardizes a style and the type of information provided, so there's less confusion for the same user. So again, I've used the Regional District of Central Okanagan because they have a very plain, simple sign guideline that we were able to, provide an example about what a potential ACRD signage guideline would look like. So it's essentially standardizing, different types of signage and how they would look aesthetically placed within the parks, and they'd each serve their own individual purpose. And then once it also drills down into what information and what design you're providing for each sign. So again, you're centering, this is just a trail marker. It identifies the difficulty level, who owns the trail, manages it, directional marking, which way to go, which way you're trying to go, different types of informational signage. So more of a informational sign and it provides a lot of opportunity to get creative within this guideline. So, it doesn't, specify exactly what type of information you need to supply for interpretive signage, just keeping the style similar and keeping branding similar across our signage. This is an example of a map that would be like a "You Are Here" sign that provides different trail routes. And again, you can be creative about what type of map and style you use for creating that. It's just kind of standardizing the layout and where your information is. Different kiosks, so more of a map and informational signage together. Back panel, and then park entrance signs, so labeling what our signage would look like when you enter each of our parks. And a trailhead sign, so again, more of a park entrance sign for a less formal entrance. So that's all I have for the park signage. And lastly, I'd like to go over some management plans. So I won't speak to the RDN Mount Arrowsmith management plan quite yet, but I'll use that as an example in a few minutes here. So a park management plan, which we've discussed at the level of service, and we discussed it in the asset management plan as well. It's intended to guide the operations, development, and stewardship of an individual park. So the plan is guided by a long-term vision and goals and describes policies with targeted actions to help with decision-making and provide direction on key park issues. So these plans differ from service-wide plans such as the Regional Parks and Trails Strategic Plan that was done in 2015, where that plan is very high level and broad and provides direction on regional service-wide decisions. These are very detailed plans with specific goals and tasks for individual parks. So a large portion of these plans really relies on the public engagement, and this provides avenues for the public to voice their opinion about what they'd like to see for the park, and also includes, engagement with different stakeholders. So we have prioritized parks that would benefit from the creation of these plans into priority 1, 2, and 3. Which you see on the attached list in the report. The plans are prioritized based off of current needs and the benefits that a management plan can provide for on-the-ground decision-making to guide development and manage challenges with public use and required infrastructure needs. So priority 1 plans have current management challenges that require addressing in the short term. Priority 2 plans have infrastructure, management, or governance needs, but are just not as urgent as priority 1 plans. And priority 3 plans are for parks that would benefit from a plan, but are currently operating quite well, and there's no pressing need to address any specific issues. So then I wanted to show you a couple of examples from the RDN who create management plans for their parks. The first one I pulled up was Mount Arrowsmith Regional Park, which is right beside our Mount Arrowsmith Park as well. Now, this is a very extensive plan. I think it's 113 pages. And they do a really good job with going over the process. And that's the main reason why I wanted to share it with you. So, identifying, who gets pulled into this process, the public stakeholders, the board, the committee, a consulting team, and staff, and then each of these groups kind of, it's a stakeholder engagement process that developed the plan. And then a plan process. This one took from April to December of that year. And again, it's a very extensive plan. I don't know if any of our parks would really require this amount of detail. So essentially, we'd be able to go through a plan we proposed every 6 months. But essentially, the phases would be, defining the values within the park, the first round of public consultations, drafting a development plan, and then bringing that to another round of consultations with stakeholders and a public information session, and then bringing the final plan for adoption with the board. And again, it's reviewing all the previous information, park survey. And so I don't want to go too far into this plan because it is so detailed, but I will show you the entirety of another plan that the RDN recently did, the Beachcomber Regional Park Management Plan. This one's only 17 pages, so it shows a very wide range. You can have something that's, a handful of pages long that just kind of touches on a few things if there's not a lot of issues to address, to something that's very detailed, 113 pages, right? So, we would tailor each management plan to fit the needs of each specific park. So again, overview of the park, the existing amenities, which we have with the asset management plan, the current uses, plants and wildlife, values, management plan overview, current issues, how the public stakeholder consultation goes, and future management actions and costs. So we'd be able to update a number of our mapping for parks, which would be quite valuable, provide a history, analyze the current park use, analyze the plant and animal communities and natural values within the park, identify current issues and challenges within parks, and then provide future options, including, a summary of public consultation, and then identify the issue, potential actions taken, when could we do it, and an estimated cost. So again, a very detailed, this is one of the less detailed management plans, but still, it goes into quite a level of detail for each park and, specific actions to address current issues. And that's all I have. Any questions on that? That's a lot of information, I know, but I'll stop sharing here.
Thank you. I think I saw Director Cote and then Director Roberts.
Thank you. Thank you for this presentation. It's quite interesting. I like the idea. I'll just go to my first question anyways, about the signage. We have a number of signs out there right now, and I don't intend, I don't think that the intention is to change any sign, but maybe new creation of signage. And it would be nice to see a budget on what that would cost to try to do that. And I'm thinking it would be quite an extensive job to change signage or try to bring all that signage so that it looks the same. And as far as the individual management plans, I'm just wondering if brings to mind that it could identify the historical value in different areas. But we don't have a service yet that covers that. So, but I'd like to see that happen. So maybe you could talk about the signage aspect anyways. Thanks.
Sure. And yeah, it would definitely, we wouldn't be pulling down existing signage that's in good shape. It would just be for implementing new signage. And if we follow a current standard for all new signage, then hopefully over time we'd get kind of a standardized practice. And I did speak with the city of Cumberland or town of Cumberland, a village of Cumberland. I'm not too sure what they are, but they did recently do one of these too. And I think their consulting fees for developing a signage strategy was about $5,000. So, you know, if we share some costs with the city, now I know they have a very active community that's interested in their bike trails and their signage and stuff. So I think they had a lot of in-kind labor and donation to implement the strategy. But, you know, until we get a little bit further down the process, we'll be able to shore up some of the costs associated with, you know, implementing the signage strategy. And then to touch on your historical context, yeah, like we would definitely bring in some of the historical values and uses for each park and the areas that would be included in the management plan. And I think that it's an important part of understanding, you know, how that park evolved to where it is now, and, you know, maybe understanding, you know, where we need to bring it to the future based on some past uses too.
Any further comments? Dr. Roberts?
Yeah, thanks for that, Michael. You mentioned earlier on with copies of the Parks and Trail Design and Construction Guidelines and the Parks and Trail Signage Strategy that the Okanagan is using. I wouldn't mind getting a copy of that myself. And also, I didn't see anything in there about the Salmon Beach Community Park and tennis courts. I would assume that that is part of your regular follow-up and checks. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I know that they do a pretty good job of managing them themselves. And if that's a priority for the community, it's something that we could include on our list. But I think at the moment we had just, you know, my understanding was that they were happy with the current management practices within that park in Salmon Beach.
Yeah, I believe so. And thanks. Much appreciated. Thank you.
But I should include, sorry, through the chair, that I include their playground on the inspection, and for my double annual inspections, we have playgrounds in Salmon Beach, Cougar Smith, China Creek, and Banfield.
All right. Thank you. Do we have any more comments? Dr. Shannon, go ahead.
Thank you. Just kind of a side question, I guess, regarding all the parks and this plan going forward. I see Mount Arrowsmith Regional Park under priority 2. We're looking at anticipated increased public use as we address access issues. Do we have any updates on that, or are we kind of building this timeline in where we're hoping discussions will be, or completely separate right now? Just kind of looking for if we have any more information on
that. So I think in previous board meetings, I've reported that, you know, I'm part of a working group with Mosaic and the province addressing access for, you know, privately managed forest lands. Right now they have their pilot project going on for Scout and Lowry Lakes, which is, you know, Mosaic kind of identified that access road as, you know, just a test case to see if everything goes well. And then, you know, if that works, then they would expand that to other areas. You know, our biggest initiative is Mount Arrowsmith because, you know, it's a park that we own and we're interested in providing more access for it. So I think it's gone well. We've had no big complaints from Mosaic through the summer. I don't have any more to update on how that's going to impact the Mount Aerosmith access, but I can say that, it is still going well. So hopefully it does provide, we see some improvements in other areas soon as well. And I'll provide an update once there's more to share there.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Are there any further comments? Go ahead. Dr. Cote.
Thank you. Just about the Mount Aerosmith. So we just saw a regional plan, parks plan for Mount Aerosmith because it is in the Nanaimo Regional District. So are we implementing the same plan then, or how will that work? Because it's our park.
So we would create our own plan with reference to the plan that was already created. And I think engaging with the RDN for how they would like to manage their park. So up there's the land ownership's a little confusing, but they have Aerosmith Massive Park. And then beside that is ours, which is essentially Mount Coakley. In the old ski area parking lot and where all that operations were. So essentially they're looking at two separate pieces of land, but they share a lot of the same issues such as access, and users generally go through our park, go up to the top Mount Coakley, and then go into their park through the trails. So it will address a number of the same topics, and it'll make the creation of our plan quite a bit more. They've done a lot of the legwork, I should say, for collecting that data and all the information and stuff. So we're able to reference their plan, focus it on our park and our unique challenges there, and then, come up with specific actions that the ACRD are able to do, and maybe in partnership with other stakeholders like RDN and Mosaic as well.
Okay, so are there any other comments or questions in regards to this? No, we do have, Dr. Cote, go ahead.
Sorry to belabor this, but just Mount Aerosmith, that park is in the RDN. So they'll have to approve it. I'm sure they'll have final say on our regional plan.
They get a comment period.
It's not in the ACRD.
Yeah.
You're correct that, it's not in the ACRD, but we have the lease through the Crown for our park section. So, it's our obligation to manage the park. So I don't believe that they would, have any approving or, have any rights to not approve any plan. They would be considered a stakeholder, which we'd engage with.
Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion? Dr. Cote, go ahead.
Thanks. I'll make the recommendation that the Committee of the Whole recommend that the ACRD Board of Directors support in principle the development of the following documents and direct staff to include the projects in the 2022-2026 draft financial plan for discussion for 1, the ACRD Parks, Trails, Design and Construction Guidelines, 2, the Parks and ACRD Parks, Trails and Signage Strategy, and 3, individual management plans for the ACRD Parks and Trails.
Great, and seconded by Dr. Roberts. Yeah. Okay, any further comments? Dr. Bodner, go ahead. You're muted though, Diane.
Sorry, through the chair to Michael, I'd like to know who is responsible for the trail that goes up to the lookout.
My understanding is that it is on private forestry land, but I can't speak for certain. I've never, looked it up in our systems, so it's something that I can look up and provide an update on.
Okay, thank
But
you.
I do know that it's not owned or managed by the ACRD.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Director Cote?
Thank you. Will these park management plans have public consultation?
Through the chair, yes, public consultation is a big portion of it, and depending on each park, the level of engagement would be tailored to that specific park and the issues and concerns that we'd like to bring to the public. So if once we get more into the process and develop how we're going to do this, I'd like to include the local director in kind of tailoring the public consultation for each plan once we're at that point.
Okay. Any further comments? Right, seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Alrighty. Doesn't appear that we have any late business. I'm wondering, Wendy or whomever, if we have any responses to the email address?
Mr. Chair, no, we do not have any input or responses from the public respecting the meeting this morning.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Look what I made there.
Yes, you made a star. I'm wondering if we could have a motion to adjourn, please.
Move to
Thank you,
adjourn.
Director Roberts, seconded by Director Cote. All those in favor? Motion carried. All right, thank you. Say bye, Raina. Say bye. Oh, she's a bit moody. See you later.